Dan, welcome to Canberra Conversations, optimised by Puresport. We're ready to rumble?
Yeah, we are. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to chat. And I guess when I was messaging you beforehand, I was saying about all the different topics that we can cover. And I think we're speaking at a really cool time, both for you personally, but of course, everything that you guys are building at Puresport as well.
Yeah, it's been a mad week, especially with, as we'll probably talk about, announcing the investment yesterday, but also London Marathon this weekend. And we have this like sort of funny saying at Puresport around... it's just a busy time, and we've been saying it for 5 years now, and it doesn't seem to tail off. But it is a busy time this week.
Are you not used to that from a life of professional sport previously? I think you guys build like a tolerance to having all these like peaking events, because you almost peak every week in pro sport, don't you? Because there's a game on a Saturday you need to be ready for. Yeah,
I think it's like such an interesting transition, because it's like obviously different things, but I think one of the things which maybe we can talk about is like I really believe in those similarities between sport and business. But one of the other things I always talk about is that stress is a muscle. It's just kind of like your lungs, and you can make your lungs fitter, and you can learn to balance stress better. So the more stuff you do, the more things you put yourself through, I really believe you're like building up that repertoire, and which we have been doing for the last 5 years now.
I know that one of the things that you were doing pre-joining Puresport was you had an e-comm brand that was on the cashmere space, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
What was going on there? What was the thought process?
So before playing, going up to Newcastle, I'd originally come over from New Zealand to try and be a professional cricketer. Ended up playing that summer in 2009, it was 2010. And I thought I'd do lots of travelling in the summer outside of cricket, and just didn't end up doing any because I was coaching all the juniors, playing on a Saturday, trying to play on a Sunday. And someone from my cricket team said, "Oh, do you want to come down to the rugby club and play down here for the winter? They'll put you up and stuff." And I said, "Oh, that sounds great." So went down there, had a really awesome season at a club called Old Crosslands in Halifax in West Yorkshire. From there, I bounced over to Otley the season after that, and just decided to stick with the rugby. It was a little bit easier to like make your way and get paid and accommodation and things like that. And when I was there, I started working for a family-owned cashmere business. Played at Otley for 2.5 seasons, and that's when Newcastle rang me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come up here and play a game in the A-League, and we'll see how you go?" Did that, and they asked me to come up full-time. And I think because I'd had that experience of working before going into professional rugby, I went into it knowing that it wouldn't last forever, and I wanted to just do it as long as it was fun. And that was quite different to a lot of the boys around me, because I was in the senior academy then, and those guys through like 13 all the way to 18, it was like rugby in school, junior academy, get into the senior academy. And I always knew that I wanted to keep tabs on doing some business things. So when I was at Newcastle, I travelled down every Wednesday to Leeds and still worked a bit for this family. And then when I moved down to London to play for Ealing, there was a bit of an opportunity to start our own business, and it basically came off the back of them having a whole lot of excess stock that they couldn't move. We said, "Oh, well, let's just set up some pop-up shops in the build up to Christmas in some affluent pockets in London, and we'll see how we go." And the first Christmas we did it would have been, I think, 2017. We set up a shop on Northcote Road in Clapham. They call it like Nappy Valley, where lots of people go to settle down and have kids. And we took up this shop. It was £200 a day. We just took it for the 5 days before Christmas. And we were like, "Oh gosh, what would be a good result?" It's like, man, well, if we did £2,000 of sales a day, that'd be great. And we ended up doing like 30 grand that week. And we're like, gosh, there might be something here. So we launched London Cashmere Company. And the premise behind the business was that we would source cashmere directly from the herders in Mongolia and bring them straight to consumers, cutting out lots of like middlemen and things. It was mainly a pop-up retail business, but when COVID happened, we kind of didn't have any choice but to go online.
Yeah, it's so cool that you were thinking about what comes after rugby. Mm-hmm. Before this episode comes out, I'll have released one with Hugh Jones, who is obviously involved with Puresport as well. And Hugh was like, "I want to talk about anything, but I'm trying not to think about life post-rugby." Mm-hmm. And some guys are better to just dial into the career and try and rinse it for all it's worth in terms of if it's a wet towel, they're trying to get everything out of it and use all their bandwidth. Yeah. And then other guys like our mutual acquaintance, Mr. Adam Ash, he was dabbling with stuff like Puresport during his career because he had his mind on the longevity of what comes next. Yeah. And it's cool that you were maybe in that camp.
Yeah, I was so far in that camp, because I think all the things that that pro sport brings to you around the pressures around injuries, contracts, moving your family all around, like, I think like when you're fixated on just that thing, those pressures allow that to come in so much more. Whereas if you're balancing that on the side with like doing other bits, that really relieves it. And the more I worked, the better I played. Like my when I was at Newcastle, I tried to tail away from the rugby, the work, to try and focus on the rugby. Didn't actually end up playing that well. When I launched London Cashmere Company, like when I was playing, it's like I felt free, because I was like, I'm just doing this to enjoy it. If it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. And my thing about the boys that go with that logic is I think that's completely fine. But where I then have no sympathy is if post rugby they're like, oh, the transition's really hard, I'm not ready, nobody's helped me, all those sorts of things, because we all know that pro sport is somewhere between 7 and 15 years.
There's a shelf life.
Exactly. So I'm a big advocate for doing stuff actually makes you a better person and a better player, but I know that's not the same for everybody.
How much of that e-commerce experience when you had to go online during COVID has been helpful when you came to join Puresport?
It was really helpful at the start. So basically when I was playing with Grayson at Bedford, we were kind of like 3 years into London Cashmere Company there, and we just had our first year online, but where we were a little bit more advanced, just thinking about like stock and customers and these sorts of things. And he used to be late to like every team meeting, or like bang on the dot. I used to always think, and I played a year with him at Ealing, so we knew each other. I was like, what is he doing? And I knew about Puresport, but the more I got to know about it, the more I was like, oh, that's a really cool thing, and just started helping him out on the back of the bus with what Excel spreadsheets look like and how you think about stock and how you forecast revenue and those sorts of things. And then in December that year, sort of me and Ashley kind of got together and said, would I like to come in and think about doing things a little bit more full time? And that Christmas run for us at London Cashmere Company was like, we did 90% of our year basically in that month. So I said, I just got to get through Christmas. We'll get to January and then we'll try and figure something out. And we figured something out between the three of us in February, and I ended up buying into Puresport. And then in March 2020, we actually went up to Newcastle with Bedford. We got humped by 50 points, went for a night out, and then woke up on the Sunday and Boris was like, right, you're off into lockdown. So
life changed rapidly.
Yeah, and then
it probably coincided with Adam going out to the States as well.
Exactly that. So exactly that. So that year, we really piled in for that first lockdown, and it was one of these COVID businesses where the more we gave it, the more it grew. And then when we came out of that first lockdown, that's when Adam sort of said, hey, I'd actually really like to shoot out to the Giltinis. I got a 2-year opportunity out there, and like that's the sort of thing you can't turn down from a life experience thing. Transitioning out of rugby, obviously he'd had a few challenges with some of the injuries and stuff at Scotland, so he did that. And then Grace and I like really ramped it through that year, and then at the end of that year we said, right, we probably need to go out and find 1 or 2 other people to help us.
Yeah, and then it's grown arms and legs since then.
Yeah, but it's funny because when I first was gonna do it, the deal that we worked out was that I'd buy in and then I'd do like 3 days a week, so I could still do Bedford and still do some London Cashmere Company throughout the summer as we got ready for the following winter. But as soon as that March lockdown happened, it's been 8 days a week since then, and we at the end of that lockdown, also not the lockdown, but when things started to ease and sport started to come back and you were training in groups of 6 and stuff.
I remember that.
We had a real decision because I had a year and a half left on my contract. Grayson still had 6 months. And it was one of those moments where it's like, gosh, do we just pile into Puresport here, or do we go back and get the full-time salary from rugby and do it on the side? And felt like such a big decision at the time, but obviously now we look back and it was the right one.
I'm pleased to say that Canberra Conversations is optimised by Puresport. As you're hearing in today's conversation with Dan, Puresport are against quick fixes. They're focused on real, hard-working solutions that are genuine and really, truly work. You can shop Puresport in the link in the show notes and use the code Canberra10 for 10% off. Yeah, and if I reflect on Puresport at that time, when Adam and Grayson started, it was very much CBD focused.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas nowadays, just spoke to Alex Holborn, who uses the roll-ons, but more people will be more familiar with what you're about to pour in your bottle, which is an electrolyte, and that's what a lot of people are focused on. So I guess there has been a big transformation over the time that you've been within the business to adapt to be a more broader supplement brand for running and wellness than purely CBD, which is pretty focused on guys recovering for professional sport back then.
Yeah, I think like the premise of the business of when Grace and Adam founded was that they were looking for something that wasn't a quick fix. And both of those guys, they're both like question the question type of characters, and when the Scotland doctor said you can't take that, they were like, well, we're going to find something that can. It's natural, it's helping me. It's not opioid based, it's not a quick fix. So the premise of the business was always around quick fixes, and I think right when they started the business, they knew that CBD, or especially when I joined, we talked about how CBD could be this vehicle to make a name for ourselves, but actually, trying to build this movement against the quick fix mentality was what the business really stood for. So all the products are actually aligned to the, original vision. It was the CBD, then we rolled out to the more nootropics, adaptogens, mushroom products, and we really knew that we had to make a name for ourselves in something. Like sports nutrition is one of the busiest categories that there is. So let's become known for something. Let's build trust with the consumers as the brand who goes out and gets the, these products certified, informed sport, professional athletes can use them. But we really knew back then, like if we wanted to be a really big category defining business, we would need to spread the portfolio wider.
Category defining is such a key term, and I think many people that listen to a podcast like this one are thinking about what their niche is or what their competitive advantage might be for their career or their business. And it is important that you didn't try and be like diet my protein or diet maxi muscle or something like that, because you'll get crushed. Because how could you possibly try and replicate that? But if you look at Puresport, it's got a really unique, clear identity and a mission that's different from other brands, and you try and make yourself a category of one rather than like the Aldi or the BTEC version of somebody else.
Exactly, yeah. And like that was the thing, is when we looked at the category and we looked at all those brands there, one of the things that I talk about is like, if I asked you to like give me some words about those brands, you'd lean into like commodity based, discount heavy, like mainstream and things. But if you took all the category defining brands and I asked you to speak about them, you'd talk about like aspirational, quality, exclusivity. So when we sat down and we looked at the category, we were like, nobody's come through the category built on purpose, built on a mission, built on clear values and identity, and a brand that has this emotional storytelling feel to it. And people used to say to us, oh, you can't do that in supplements, it's too busy, there's too much going on. And like what I say is to the teams, like that's what gets us up in the morning, that we wake up and we're building something that is that, and these people have this connection to the brand because they feel like it's something that they can belong to. And that's how we think that we really build something category defining in supplement space.
Yeah, and that's how you compete against yourself, and you improve and iterate on what Puresport are doing rather than improve and iterate on what's happening within the wider supplement space. Because we spoke about quick fixes there. How many companies pop up with a quick fix, and there's quite a famous example quite recently we can maybe talk about when it comes to creatine gummies. People pop up, they boom, and unlike you guys, the whole phrase for the long run, which really resonates with me, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to partner with you guys on the show, is against that fad like movement, here today gone tomorrow, quick buck, quick win. Instead, let's focus on longevity, integrity, honesty, and have something that stands the test of time. And there will have been times during the Puresport journey, and I know from chats with Adam in the sauna at David Lloyd sometimes, that it's been ropey and it's been challenging, but having a mission that keeps you going is more helpful. Whereas if you were in it for a quick buck and a quick exit, it wouldn't have stood the test of time. Oh,
absolutely. And like one of the things that I always say is like everything you want is on the other side of hard, and like all those best things in life. And the three things we advocate for a brand is put good things in your body, exercise, and meaningful social connection with other humans. And all of those things take work. Like we aren't going to maintain a great friendship if I don't speak to you for 5 years. So it's the same with your exercise. It's about showing up. It's about commitment. It's about getting those regular wins. And one of the things that we really thought about is, for the last 5 years, we've been obsessed about brand, and we could probably be twice the size of business now. And, we've had all those opportunities to go into mainstream retailers, to be on the shelves at Boots, all those sorts of things. But everything that we spoke about, we're like, well, if we're truly building a movement against quick fixes, if we really are for the long run, we have to spend this initial phase of the business really building something with purpose. And I think like one of the biggest challenges we have, and it's kind of the way that we've built the brand, is everything at Puresport's a good idea. What supplements we could bring out, t-shirts, community events, we could do holidays, we sell 1,000 pairs of socks a week. And I'd say like in the last 12 months is probably the time in which we've really got that like clarity around.
What's helped you do that?
So one of the big things that helped me do that was, I've recently onboarded a director to the business, a guy called Stephen Moon, who was the CEO of Science and Sport. And he was there for 13 years. And when he first rocked up to the office, he said to me, Dan, I get the business, so you look nice, I get where you're going and all that sort of stuff. But like, what do you, if I walked out there and asked all the team in the office out there what they're trying to do, what would they say? And they'd say, well, we're building a movement against quick fixes. And they say, yeah, but what does that mean for them? Like, what does that really mean? Hey, that's your external goal. You can do all your marketing and stuff around that. That's fine. And you can align a movement towards that. But like, what does that mean to these guys? And I was like, well, I don't really know. And he's like, I'll give you an example. When we were at Science and Sport, our overarching message was to be fueled by science, and we wanted to have the best science-led products, and we wanted to be fueled by that and athletes, and it fitted into all that. But everyone on the team knew that we wanted to be the number one fuel for endurance athletes, and that's what we wanted to do. And whether you were packing orders, you were making gels, or you were marketing, that's what you wanted to do. So what is that for you? And I really resonated with that, because I think one of the things that's really tough, and an easy example is like events or even ambassadors. Ambassador team being like, hey, like Hugh Jones is a great ambassador, wants to work with us. We've also got Hayden Wild, who's an amazing triathlete. We've also got Beth Potter, who's a triathlete, and then we've also got Charlotte Purdue. And all of these people are great people for the brand, but it didn't necessarily like help us to identify with something. And where we were really making those waves was in running. So what we did is we sat down and we're like, right, we want to be the best running supplement brand. And by best, we define that by best products, best community of people, best business. Like, do people enjoy working here? Do we have a good culture? Are we a profitable business? And the reason that we've really picked running is like, all of us can resonate with running. It's not polarizing. Like, we all do it as kids. So many sports like continue to involve it. And the wider vision of the business, so what I talk about is like, we want to be a hero category defining business, and that's our Everest, but our base camp is to become the best running supplement business. And straight away, that gives everybody in the team clarity. Okay, we want to work with these ambassadors. Okay, we want to do these events. Okay, we're going to bring out these products. And I think that was a really a big moment for us in the team, because everybody kind of felt like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
When you have your identity clear, it's easy, and I do this with some of the guys that I coach for their sales coaching. I'll say to them, like, make your identity and this version of you that you want to become, and then from there we're going to work back to what are the habits, routines and behaviors of that person. And if your habits, routines and behaviors aren't in alignment with that identity, then you're delusional, and there's a gap between that. And I'm a big believer a lot of the mental health crisis is the delta and the gap between people's aspirational version of themselves and what their reality is. In the same way, you with your brand are able to be like, look, we want to be the best running supplement brand in the world. So the events we run, the products we release, the marketing we put out there, the ambassadors we work with, all has to align with that. Otherwise, it's just window dressing and saying that. And how many brands have this mission statement, and you look at what they do and you're like, nah, it doesn't align whatsoever. Whereas you guys can quite clearly strip back and say, the communities we run through our run club, the electrolytes we're releasing, the CBD roll-on, these are all helping in the exact mission that we've got.
Exactly that. And then even deeper in that, everything we do is for the long run. Under for the long run, we have these like storytelling principles. A lot of the things you said there around like, commitment, resilience, showing up, and all the storytelling that we're doing, it's always trying to align to that. And we're actually doing this big piece of consumer research at the moment. We've got somebody coming who's helped us. They've been doing it for 30 years, worked at all the big Unilevers, Nikes, Adidas's and things. And she comes in for 3 months and does this piece of research. And she just finished the internal brand audit, where she looks through all that stuff. She did 29 interviews with team, customers, people who don't like the brand, like brand haters, like a whole
somebody left a 1-star review.
A whole scope of people. And the first thing she said after she sort of gave a bit of a feedback on that was like, oh, like Dan, I have to be honest with you, I was so worried. I came into this office and it's full of energy and young people and things, and I saw all this stuff up on the wall with your values and your mission and what you want to be and for the long run. And I was like, oh gosh, here's another one of these companies with things up on the wall, but it's just up there for that sake. But she's like, I've never been into a company before where I've felt the values of the business echoed through like everything that you guys are, really cool. Are doing. And yeah, it was a really cool moment.
Do you have any things, like I would call them anchors in my life, that you guys have to bring people back to? So for example, for the long run is a great phrase that you can use that people immediately go, does this serve us for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years time?
Yeah,
that can really help.
Yeah, so we have 7 values in the business, and everyone in the team knows them off by heart. Do you
test them?
Yeah, we have done tests before. Yeah, so have you ever run into a Puresport or you try test them out? But in the first week of the month now, we do like a little refresher, and then also in like we have this There's a Slack channel called Sweet Not Salty, and it's where we give like shout outs to people about like things that they're doing, and then we always try and align a value to what that person did, just as like little reminders. But those things there are things that we really align like all of our decision making to. So we run our own race is the first one. We really want to be original, we want to be disruptive. Community is our culture, belonging is our DNA. It's a really big one for us. We're a community first business, as you know, and like that culture of like people feeling like they belong there is a big one for us. Complacency kills. Like if we get complacent, we'll be dead. No shortcuts. That's in our products. That's the way we do things. We don't just do sales for the sake of it. Our energy sets us apart. So anytime you run into someone with Puresport, our events, our team, our ambassadors, we want you to feel like, oh, that person from Puresport was like,
it's really the fist bump, it's the encouraging, it's the pushing people to fulfill themselves.
That's a really big one for us. Results win championships. It's one of the ones I talked about the team about, like the years in which at sport I did win stuff. It was because I don't remember how hard it was, but what I remember is we were a group of people that did something cool together, and our last one is Here for Legacy, and that comes back to that building a category defining brand, and everything we do we're aligning towards. If we were a 100-year-old business, would we be making this decision now and aligning to that?
It's so key to have frameworks and things that people can come back to, and labels really help. Like, again, with my coaching stuff, it's really important to be able to bring somebody back to a phrase. So I could say to you about, like you were mentioning, you brought in a sales guy for a little bit. If he has like a prospecting flow, if there isn't like a name or a framework that you can rely upon, then it's really hard to hold him to account. You can't be like, did you use the 3 L's in your discovery meeting with Boots or whoever you've met from like a retail perspective? And he's like, nah, I didn't use the second L. We can hold them to account. Whereas if you're like, how did your meeting go? Was it a good meeting? It's too vague, it's too broad. Whereas you can be like to the guys, I feel like we've been a little bit complacent last week. Complacency kills, remember that. So they're like, right, okay, we need to be more on it this week because complacency kills. Yeah,
totally. And like those ones we use all the time, like around the no shortcuts, about like if we're thinking about, you know, doing something or about to miss a revenue target for the month or something like that, of like, oh, should we do this, or should we spin this up, or should we put on this offer or whatever. And like that's one that we talk about, you know, all the time.
One of the things I wrote down I want to ask you about was asking your team members about A+ problems. What does that mean?
So A+ problems are like what I call like the biggest problems that people are having, and I do this thing every 2 weeks where I sit down with everyone from the team. They know the meeting's coming up, they have a think about it, they bring their biggest problem, and the premise of that is basically that I think as humans, like, we really like to do stuff that gives us like, you know, quick wins and things that are easy to do. So I think what you find in business, a lot of people are like continue to solve C problems. They're like, oh God, that's a bit of an issue, I can sort that out today. I did that, that's a great result. But it's very hard for us to take on the biggest challenges in the business. And I really believe if you can continue to unlock the biggest challenges in the business, then you know the velocity of that and the like compound interest of that is massive. And so every 2 weeks we sit down, they bring their biggest problem, we take it down, and some of them we actually just sort there and then. They're like, oh God, I've been thinking about this, and you know, I don't know what to do about it. What do you think I should do about it? And we talk about that. And I think it does a couple of things. It helps me to unlock anything that really needs unlocking and can propel us forward. Number two, it gives me like a really great soundbite into the business of like how people are feeling. And you know, when there's 3 or 4 of you around the table and you're just like ripping it every day and you kind of know what everyone's doing, you got a good feel for how everybody is.
But your team's grown because the business has grown.
Exactly. And if you're a team of 16, like my actual daily interactions with, you know, each individual person, they actually become quite small. So it came off the back of seeing a video about that's how Elon Musk like really sets up his weeks. It's like, because you look at him and you're like, God, how is he running those? You know, he's a bit of a controversial character at the moment, but he's running all those big businesses. But one of the things that they talk about is like in each business, he will just continue to go after the biggest problems. So it came off the back of that, and I found it really, really helpful.
Yeah, the phrase that came to mind when I was reading about you talking about that was identifying the dial movers. So what's really going to move things in the right direction? Or the other one that was screaming in my head was the elephant in the room. So there might be somebody sat in marketing or sat in distribution that knows there's a problem lurking and they don't feel empowered to deal with it, or they feel scared to talk about it. But if you have a meeting every 2 weeks that fundamentally focuses on the big problems, they come and they're able to get it off their chest and they get time with the boss to say, what do you think we should do here? Or they're able to present their ideas and be like, this is our problem, I'm a bit concerned about it, I really want to work on it, my idea for it is this, what do you think, Dan? And you can be like, I love that idea, that one there we need to maybe tweak this. And it's like it's an environment where people are allowed to be open about what's challenging them and not hide from it. Because I think many corporate cultures, in particular when teams get really big, if there's a big problem, don't talk about it because it makes you look like you're not doing your job properly.
Yeah.
No. Your job is solving these problems alongside your senior leaders.
Yeah, totally. And hopefully not too many of the team listen to this, but one of the other things that's actually really good for me is because we're in this disarming conversation where they're giving me a problem, I can actually also give them one back. So they're like, oh, this is the thing that's, oh yeah, there's actually something I really want to talk to you about. It's a challenge I'm having with something that you're doing or something that happened and things like that. And you've created this like sounding board for that to take place in a really easy way. And one of the things I always talk about in the team is like, we're building a high performing sports team. And I think one of the easiest examples about that is if we're playing rugby together and you give me a bad pass, like I'm straight over to you. And I'm like, bro, that's a bad pass. Like if you'd have given me that, it would have created this opportunity, whatever. And in business, especially with a lot of young people, there isn't that same like drive for standards, and people find it a bit like, oh, I don't really want to say that because I don't want to rock the boat. But one of the things I say to people is like, if you think about that for 10 minutes every day, that's an hour a week that you could have spent focus on like moving the business forward. In a conversation, you could have just gone up and said, hey, that's not how it was meant to go down. That bothered me for this reason. Next time, can we do it like this? It's parked, it's moved on.
Open lines of communication and problems spoken and shared can often be halved.
Yeah,
which is great. And we're not looking for things to be perfect, but if somebody can have an open line conversation, particularly if it comes from a growth mind perspective, so on the rugby pitch you can say like, that was a bad pass it to me like this next time, or give it to me earlier, like I feel like I can create space by doing this. You don't just come with a problem and a complaint, you come with a solution and a request for what to do in future. And I think that's something that people get wrong too. I just sat down with Ollie Patrick from the Energy Equation podcast, and he was talking about low pressure equals low performance. So in the same way, if I put a little bit of expectation and pressure on my colleagues, that's a good thing because they want to rise to the challenge of it. Whereas if I had no expectation and no encouragement for them to do better, then they stoop to that level and they just mundane and coast along. Yeah, no, definitely. I think all the best people in the world perform well under pressure, and I think that this is one of the things that I've really found in that transition from sport has helped. That is like, there's a big difference between pressure and fear. And like nobody performs well under fear. And the worst rugby coaches I had were those ones that, put that fear on you. And, if they say, hey, you need to go out and play well this week or you're getting dropped next week. So, oh shit, like that's not great. And you're going to play under fear. Whereas they say, hey, Dan, like you've had a great training week this week. The team really needs you this week. If you have a big day today, the team are going to get behind you. We're rooting for you. Let's get out there and get after it. Like that for me, like it puts the pressure that I need because the team needs me, but I don't go. And the coach in the back of his mind knows if he doesn't play well this week, he's getting dropped. But I don't need to know that. And one of the things that I really believe in is and I'm really passionate about the leadership, side of things, but I really believe that leaders are really made in those tough times. It's so easy to lead a team when you come in and the sails are going up to the right, but it's like, what kind of leader are you when the time is really tough? And when I think back to those experiences in rugby, we lose a few games and they make you go out and smash each other and they're yelling at you and then the reviews are all crap and they're calling people out and all this sort of stuff. That actually makes people go into the show. But I think the great leaders are the ones who, because there's so much external pressure, right? Especially like in our business, and we've got a lot of investment now and those sorts of things. Like in the tough times, can I absorb that pressure and that on my shoulders and distribute it to the team in a way that helps it offload from me, but it also helps to get the best out of them? And one of the things I say about myself is like I do really push people, but I don't push people because I'm like, I'm like toxic or like really hard. I push people because I believe in so many instances and examples I've had of like pushing someone to their limit has actually meant that they've gone on to produce their best work. And when somebody produces something that they didn't necessarily think that they were capable of before, I think that that's something really magic. That's so rewarding as a leader to generate that from. And pushing standards and expectation levels is a positive thing. Yeah. And I know I respond best to having people in my friendship group, people in my network that demand more of me and not call me out on my bullshit. But if I say that I'm going to do something, be like, oh, Colin, you said you were going to launch your sales masterclass video course in Q2 of this year. If I get to the end of Q2, I want my friends or the people that really value me and have high expectations of me to be like, Colin, you've not released that. You said you were going to. I'd be like, do you know what? Thank you for saying that, because other people might just be like, oh, it was a shame you were busy or whatever else as well. No, hold me to the highest version of myself that I said I was going to be when I felt like I was capable of my most.
Yeah, and I think what's really important about that is within that group, that those standards aren't just driven by one person. Those standards have been driven by lots of people, and we talk about this all the time of like, we're 16 now, and can Dan drive the standards? Like, yes, he can. If you're 50, can Dan drive the standards? No, he can't. And all the best organizations, all the best teams that I certainly played in, were the teams in which the standards were being driven by all of the players all of the time. It wasn't a coach telling you had the wrong socks on and you were 5 minutes late for gym or whatever. It was the players pulling you up, and
it was somebody in the dressing room policing the dressing room on behalf of the manager or the coach.
Exactly. And I say to the team, like, we're the custodians of the brand now, the 16 people in the room right now, and when the next 16 come, it's not about me saying that they have to learn the values, or that's how we run the business, or that's what our framework of decision making is, or that we're for the long run. It's you telling them, because you're the ones who are building this, you're the ones who have got us this far, and us widening that team of players, and then replicating the same things that we stand for. That's really important, and I can't do that all the way through.
If you're new to the podcast, make sure you've hit the subscribe or the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on, so I can keep getting fantastic guests just like this one. You mentioned that the brand could have been bigger by now if you've maybe gone into retail or something like that. I think when you look around London in particular, you assume the brand is even bigger because of the number of people that wear the merch, the pink run socks. You see the bottles in every gym you go into. I was in David Lloyd Kensington and I spotted one of the salty paste bottles. The community element of what you do almost infers the size of the brand is bigger, but I guess the reassuring piece that I would hope would be that is the foundations for the hockey stick moment.
Yeah, I hope so. I actually, in you saying that, I had a mad moment on the weekend. I went to see my mum, and she lives in Wetherby in Yorkshire, and I drove to see my friend in Otley, where I used to live. And the day before, Jules had said, my wife, "Oh, imagine if you saw something out here in Puresport stuff." Then the following day, we're driving to Yorkshire around this like little country bit, and it was like, oh my gosh, that person running on the side of the road has got Puresport socks on, and drove past. It was a bit of a bad place to stop, sort of thing, but I was like, yeah, she does. Driving up 300 meters further up on the other side of the road, there was another lady with Puresport socks on, and I was like, that's mental, we're gonna have to stop. So we pulled over in this like truck bay up there, and we waited for them to come down, and I was just like, it's mad. And they were just buzzing about it, and they loved the socks, and they were training for Leeds Marathon, and they liked the brand and stuff. And
that's the ripple effect of doing good things, though.
Yeah,
because people are proud to rep the brand, whereas like how many people are repping insert other brand.
Exactly. And that's one of the things, like, I think everyone can resonate with what we're about. You know, those three things that I spoke about, like one of the things I talk about is those three things are in our DNA. Like, we've known for as long as we've been around that putting good things in our body, exercise, and connection with other humans are three really important things. And when we talk about Puresport being a place that everybody feels like they can belong, it's because those things that we stand for, that they are for other people. And that's like this community first approach of, like, we talk about this like a rising from the ground up of people. You know, this like global prioritization towards health and exercise now. It's awesome. And like, we don't think there's anything cooler in the world than being healthy. And the fact that, like, we're just surrounded, we're in this chamber now where everybody's a part of it. You know, the late night drinking and stuff is fading out, and the getting up at 7 a.m. to go for a run is like coming in, and it's so cool to like be a part of that. But I think exactly as you say, like when I talked about, can we build an emotive storytelling brand and supplements, like, there's no bigger badge of honor if somebody's willing to wear your brand and say, like, hey, I'm part of the Puresport lifestyle and I'm proud to be a part of it.
How did you guys build such a big run club? Because that is what a lot of people will know Puresport for, sometimes before the subs.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it was just, we were sat in a WeWork. We'd been training rugby players. We were training 2-3 times a day, and we're sat in this WeWork now for 12 hours a day. And we're like, gosh, this just doesn't feel that good. You know, we need to do something. Our arms were shrinking like nothing else, and because we weren't going to the gym anymore and stuff like that. And we just said, oh, well, let's just go for a run at lunchtime. We had a really keen runner in the business at that time, and we used to just run 2 kilometers to a cafe. We used to have a coffee and used to run 2 kilometers back, and that used to feel like pretty far. And then, sure enough, a few people watching the Instagram stories, and they worked in the offices close by, some customers said, oh, can I come to that? So we had 4 or 5 people, then we had 5 or 6, then we're like, oh, maybe we should go to a park. And I think that's the reason why it's so big, because I think what's happened now, and like the boom of run clubs is, you know, it's for everyone to see. But I think a lot of people, like, if they looked at us and they go, oh, Puresport looks like it's growing really fast. What are they doing that's different? Oh, they have a run club. Oh, a run club must mean that you sell more products. We want to sell more products. let's start a run club. Whereas we were like, oh, we actually just want to exercise. We like hanging around with people. It's part of our mission, our brand. Like, let's just do it. And if you ask me right now, like, what is the ROI of Run Club? I couldn't tell you. You know, like, why? The reason that we do it is because we love it. For a lot of us, that Saturday morning is like, that's a reminder that working 60 or 70 hours during the week in the office, we're actually doing something meaningful. So that's how it started, and it's just become such a big part of the brand now.
That's a really healthy view to have, because it means that you're just doing it regardless of the outcome. Like, process driven is great. Like, you're going to turn up and you're like, I'm really pleased to see lots of people here exercising, being healthy on a Saturday. The ripple positive effect is that people like wearing the hoodies, like wearing the socks, like having their water bottle at the gym, and happy to be like, oh, like, where's that from? Oh, that's from Puresport.
Yeah. And this is the thing of, like, if we're truly going to build a movement, like, movement's a couple of things. It's a movement of people that kind of incorporates exercise. But if we're going to build a movement, that needs to be a part of the brand, and we can't just have it on the wall. We need to live that and be part of it.
And it can't just be online as well, Dan.
Yeah.
I think people are starving for connection nowadays, and run clubs, the boom of them, is very much linked to this kind of loneliness epidemic where people are maybe isolated. And you said there about we're moving away from like the late night drinking, the partying, the recreational drug taking, more towards this kind of holistic, healthy lifestyle. We're in a little bit of an echo chamber because of that, and I hope it continues to boom. But some people are struggling to find that in their corporate culture. They look around and they're like, these guys are all overweight, they drink, they smoke, they're not living a good lifestyle. I need to find people that are more like me. And they're going to these run clubs to find that, and a brand's creating that for them. They're going to naturally gravitate towards that, and they're going to make friends, they're going to meet romantic partners as well, because people joke the whole run club, date club thing. But that's actually really healthy. People meeting people offline who have similar interests. Yeah,
that's this whole thing, isn't it, of like, you're an average of the people you hang around with. And like, I think what's so interesting, and we've seen this because we've been doing it for 4 years now, is like the people that come into the community events and they're looking for what you're talking about there, like, something different. Maybe their friends aren't ready for the exercise route, or they're in a corporate thing where those aren't the people they want to hang around with. And they become best friends. Like, all of a sudden they're going on holiday together, they're moving into flats together, they're finding each other's jobs. And now this person's like found this group of people, through our movement, through Puresport, and they are like the people that they hang around with all the time now. And I think that that's such a cool part of it. But I think it's exactly what you're talking about, of like, if we want to be better, or we want to change the way that we're doing things, we need to hang around with people who are also going to be doing that. And you put a room of 500 people together, all with similar interests, you're going to find those people.
We're going to connect. You recently pivoted, though. One of your most popular ever social posts, I was talking to Tom about this, was you talking about moving away from the physical space in Southwark towards something different. What's that?
The Southwark Clubhouse it was originally our office, and then we were like, oh, let's run clubs from here. So we started doing that. Then it was like, gosh, we had no bag drops. We had to move our desks every Wednesday, every Saturday. So we actually then turned it into just a clubhouse. We have that one there, and we also have the one in Hackney. And that space costs us about 120 grand a year in rent rates, and then just electric and all that sort of stuff. And then also it takes about 4 or 5 of the team every Saturday morning to do that. So it's really resource heavy. I think as well, like when we first started doing it, we were like the first brand sort of to like really move into the space, which is crazy to think about now because they're just so common. But 4 years ago, it was only really like serious track, run clubs. And I think some of the times in business, you have to ask yourself the big question. And the C+ problem is like, hey, that's a good thing. It continues on. We have people showing up every week. But the A+ question is, if you gave me £120,000 a year to truly build a movement, like a UK movement against quick fixes, how would you spend it? And looking at that's not how I'd spend it. And one of the things that I've always been conscious of is like, we do a lot of stuff in London because we're a small team, that's where our resource is. But actually, like our what we do resonates with people all over the UK, all over the world. And we don't want to be perceived as like, oh, they're just a London brand. So we're keeping the Hackney space as like a London hub for us. It's a little bit better set up because it's on a single floor. It's got more bathrooms, like things like that. And then we're actually taking that resource and tripling the investment to go and do stuff. And June's going to be a really cool month for us. We're doing a big UK-wide thing. We're going to
I've seen the Glasgow date.
Yeah, Glasgow.
Me and Adam will be there.
Yeah, Glasgow, Edinburgh.
I'll drag him out for a 5K.
No, definitely. And this is the thing. And like, I don't think, in those places you need to show up every single week necessarily for people to feel like that they're part of the brand. But if you can come twice a year or 3 times a year, then I think that truly then gets people done. One of the things we've always said is like, we've always managed to say 6 months ahead of everybody else. And what I kind of felt with this decision is like, other people are kind of catching up to like what we're doing there. So what's that next thing? And the next thing isn't just 10 tours. We've got lots of cool stuff that we're planning.
I think people around the UK will appreciate you investing more time in them. Like there was a meet up in Glasgow last year and the attendance was absolutely crazy. Yeah. And then you've got run clubs under the Puresport banner in different cities now that run on like a Tuesday night or whatever as well. Yeah. So the ability for you to, the term would be like permeate more cities with like a community-led approach is so good.
Yeah. And I think like as I look around like that, no one else is doing that, you know. And I actually like, you know, obviously like we're a community first brand, but I don't necessarily like the word community. I think it's so overused by big companies now. They're like, oh gosh, like people are saying we need to be about community, let's go and do that. Whereas we truly are about community. And sometimes I say to people that, oh, you got this amazing community. I was like, oh, we're not a community, we're a movement. And I think that that is much more like what we're about. Like it's this movement of people towards this prioritization of health and exercise. And one of the things that we say is like, actually, if people come into our movement, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, like we're about that, you know. And because lots of people used to say to me, oh, are you annoyed that everyone's starting other run clubs, or like, you know, that this brand's doing a run club and things like that? And we used to say like, oh no, we're not, because if that person gets that person into exercise, off the couch, into running, like that person is becoming someone who may be a Puresport customer, but even if they never become a Puresport customer, they are helping us build a movement against quick fixes.
That's an abundant mindset to have, and that's why people like you win. People who have a scarcity mindset would be like, no, you should only come to our run club. Oh, don't be such a precious little bitch. Like actually be embracing of the fact that people are making healthy choices and they're coming into your demographic, which is people who exercise on a weekly basis, want to perform better, not just pro athletes but like office athletes.
Yeah. And like those people, you know, whether they start exercising and maybe it's a year or maybe it's 2 years, like they sign up to their first 5k park run or they sign up to their first 10k, like that person at a moment in time will hopefully come into an understanding or become educated enough to know like actually these supplements, they can really help me. And then hopefully at that moment in time, Puresport is front of mind because we're someone who's stayed true to what we're about. You know, they align to our values. We have this community first approach where maybe they've popped up to something that we've been a part of, but at the same time, if they don't and they just want to get out there and get after it, you know, we're about that.
We mentioned that we're recording at a really cool time because this week you had the news that you had VC investment over 3.6 million coming into Puresport. What does that mean for the direction of travel?
Yeah, so it's really going to help us accelerate the vision. I think like you said there, you know, if a brand truly, it's like building a house, right? Like if you build really solid concrete foundations, it's going to allow you to build the house a lot faster. And I kind of felt like this has been a really pivotal moment for us. We've spent a lot of time brand building. We've spent a lot of time understanding what we're about, what the new product development like direction looks like, and becoming the best running supplement brand. And it just felt like this is the time that we should really, you know, get the afterburners on. And I think like so often you feel like there's these I'm like a red personality. I'm like 5x red, so I always feel like we're going too slow. Or
have you read Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson? It's all about the DISC personality model.
Oh no.
And like as a red, I'm quite action orientated as well. Fast. Sometimes you feel like you're surrounded by idiots who are like wanting to go slower. You're like, no, we need to go now. But it's a great book for understanding how to communicate better with other personality types.
I'll get that off you afterwards. So I always feel like our window is closing, but you know, I really feel now like there's a really busy category, and now is the time that we can, not in a way that's not true to what we're doing. We would never, as I say, we're here for legacy. We're building a 100-year-old brand. We don't take shortcuts.
100-year-old. That's a great time scale to like think about.
Yeah, and like we don't say this anymore, but we used to say it back then when we were thinking about stuff. We're like, oh, what would Nike do? You know, like we used to think about like, oh, should we go into Boots? And like, oh, they want to put us on 3-for-2s. It's like, well, what would Nike do? Well, they wouldn't do that yet because
it demeans the brand a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I heard that your WhatsApp group photo was a horse with a Puresport mask on it.
Yeah, it's still
because
is now,
it's keeping you focused.
Yeah, racehorse mentality we call it. Like the thing around that is that a racehorse knows it's in a race with loads of other horses, but it can't see them. So that's what we talk about. Is like we know we're in a race with all of these people here. And I think the tough thing is like it's so hard to not open up your Instagram and see what other people are doing and see what other, you know, especially lots of the little brands around you. But actually, like we just need to, like, our first value is we run our own race, and part of that is around this of like we're not distracted by noise. Like, this is what we're doing, and I think this is one of the things of leading a business, especially, you know, in small circles. Like, it can be quite toxic because you might hear of a company that launches and they scale super fast, and then
they use TikTok Shop and they did this, and you're thinking, whoa, those numbers are great, like that would be a lot for us, but you understand that that's maybe not for you.
Exactly. And like, and then the thing is all the brands that Adam and Grayson used to sit around and talk about, they don't exist now. You know, like, we used to sit around and spend hours talking about these other CBD companies.
CBD was really difficult though, the whole novel food thing. Incredibly difficult. Even then, Adam and I, maybe 6-7 months ago, before he started No Talks, was talking about caffeine chewing gum, and that's another novel food. So the supply chain for that was so difficult. It was a really different but even now, like, some of the brands we're like, you know, we talk about or we've been referencing over the last 2 or 3 years, like, you just don't hear anything about them now because they've kind of had this meteoric rise, and then it's really dropped off. And like, for me, I think TikTok Shop is like a graveyard for brands who want to. I think it suits a particular product, but if you're a brand trying to go on there and you're discounting it 40-50%, and you've got some person walking on the treadmill in the garage, you know, selling all your supplements or whatever, and they're selling 5 other things. Like, I get that works for some people, and some people aren't bothered about brand. They're just like, we want to ramp this as much as we can. But for us, like, that's just not something that we would engage with. You don't want to associate that with. I don't think you would have VC backing if that's how you were modeled as well.
Yeah, so I think that was a really important part of the process, and finding those people who know what we're about. And in those first conversations, when I sat down with them, I said, hey, we're building something category defining here. It might take 10 years, it might take 20, but I know that you guys aren't necessarily going to be on the journey for the whole way. You know, it's like a train, and some people get off at certain stops, but you need to know that we won't do anything that would sacrifice us doing that. And that's why we were really careful with the partners that we chose. And one of the funny things, when I did that post yesterday, I went back to the original message I got from FSV in February 2024, and they reached out saying, hey, we've seen you guys on the radar, like, would like to have a conversation, do you want to raise investment, sort of a thing. And back then we weren't, and I said, hey, we might think about the end of the year, we'll come back to you. And there's a piece from me at the bottom that says, just so you know, we're building a category defining brand, and we're here for the long run, and that may take us time, whatever. And we actually only came up with for the long run, we nailed that in probably August. It was probably July or August time. And I was like, oh gosh, that's just such a good little reminder. But yeah, to your point, like, you know, even now in this, getting the money and all that sort of stuff, it's like, cool, let's really map out the next 3 years. Let's go slow to go fast.
For any form of private equity investment, there's a bit of a beauty parade, and you speak to lots of different PE houses, and they look at lots of different companies at different times. How did you make sure that they were the right partner for you guys?
So Red Rice we've been speaking to for a couple of years, and we first came onto the radar with them, and we went and had an initial conversation, and they were the founding partner there, Tom, who really loves Puresport, and then one of the other founding partners, Robert Senior, who is the CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, did loads of Nike campaigns and stuff. So like, on an emotive level, he gets Puresport, you know. So we really like resonated with him, and when we wanted someone to lead the round, like, they were a really obvious first choice for us. Very like business leader friendly, very focused on brand, but also had some really great investment stories as well, with like Castor and some other ones. And then once we got them, we're like, well, what balances us out now? And 5 seasons of I think they were like the best performing consumer fund in Europe or something in their first fund, scaled 4 brands from sub 10 million revenue to over 200 million revenue in 6 years. And they just brought a real like good business scale expertise. And I think what's kind of funny about their investment in us is like we are off piste for them. They usually do 3 million minimum, I think. They really look at like really high growth, fast moving consumer brands. And I think if you probably went and asked the guy Nicolo there about like, oh, you know, why did you invest in Puresport? That seems a little bit off piste for what your portfolio usually is. I think he would say to you like, oh, I don't actually know, but that guy Dan was just so convinced that they were going to grow a 200 million revenue supplement brand that we thought it was worth a punt.
They bought in.
Yeah.
You shared a really cool screenshot of your own Strava data, which is obviously your running data from the last 6-7 months, and there was a lot of ups and downs in there. How have you managed to stay on top of your well-being while of course focusing on business?
The honest answer is I probably haven't. Like I said in that post, it's just so mad, isn't it, that like you go into a busy time and you're like, I'm not going to exercise, but exercise is the thing that makes you feel the best. And I think one of the things that I really battle with internally is like, obviously coming from professional sport, you're surrounded, or in rugby, it's lots of the teams I've played in, you're surrounded by some of the best athletes in the country, and that's like really driving you forward. And now I look around and, we're surrounded by people, and I know that comparison is the thief of joy, but you're seeing all these people do all these things and you're always thinking, oh gosh, if I just had a bit more time, I could like do fast marathons, or I could improve my exercise and things. So I actually get quite like toxic with myself about that, of like, oh gosh, I really want to be doing that, but I also want to grow this business. I've also done a 6-month renovation project on my house. So really testing out a lot on your plate. Yeah, really testing out the stress muscle. But I think I think that like, so through that investment piece there, you can actually see on the Strava thing when it was. And then the 2 weeks after we got the money in, I did more kilometers than I'd done the whole time, and I felt so much clearer about everything again. So I think it's just, again, as you said, the people you surround yourself with. We're really lucky that we have a very active team, lots of people who enjoy high level sport. So trying to surround yourself with those people. But the thing, as I said, there is like the toxic reality is like, it's so hard, and there's this lots of glorified business leaders and stuff that you follow that they do manage to balance it, and you're like, how are they doing that? And then they're just better at time managing or whatever. But it's something I'm really going to be focusing on this next year. Life
comes in seasons and sprints, and you were definitely sprinting at that point in time, not on Strava, but in business. And for me, if I think about how I perform, I believe that the mind follows the body. So I have like a minimum amount of training and walking that I do to perform at my best in my sales career, to perform at my best in my sales coaching, to perform at my best on the podcast. And if I don't fulfill those, I notice straight away. And my conversations are less articulate, less verbose, I'm less nimble, I'm less well researched. Of course, there's a tipping point where you're focusing too much on type C problems, which is like you're like just being that tiny bit more jacked doesn't really matter. But training and looking after my body and going for the morning walk and having my podcast in or having an audiobook in, it has to happen for me to turn up and do my absolute best. I don't know, I think running's obviously time consuming, so it can be really challenging to be like, how much running can I actually fit in? But having a minimum viable dose that you know that Dan needs to do to turn up and be the CEO of Puresport at its best, I'm sure you'll find that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, and even like you but kind of like, obviously running does take time, but a 5k can take you half an hour, and that's nothing really, and you should always be able to fit that in. But the reality of the investment raise is like, we were running out of cash, and we were running out of cash fast. And if we didn't land that, like Puresport was in like serious trouble, and we'd put a load of debt in the business to get us through the raise and things. But that only lasts so long, and we couldn't keep going back to the fountain there. And I think a lot of my energy in that time was consumed by absorbing that pressure and not letting the team know that like that's the situation that we're in. And
the phrase that I would use is, you were like an umbrella sheltering the team from the rain or the storm. And it's really masculine and great of you to do that, but that comes at a cost. Yeah,
and I'm lucky. Like, we have a really great head of finance who he's like gets to see all that and is on top of that with me and shares that burden. But it's just back to this thing of like, the team performs well when they understand that us hitting our numbers is going to increase our chance of these people investing, and it's going to accelerate us, something like that. They don't perform well if you say, hey, we're actually going to run out of cash at the end of the month and no one's getting paid. So that's the thing
that's the position of power that you're in, that you are the one that deals with that. The broadest shoulders carry the heaviest burden at that point in time. And it's important that you don't burden others with that if you can handle it up until that point. And that may mean that your own health and your own time that you spend on things deteriorates for a short period of time, because you're like, right, I'm going to handle this. But when it's now all clear, you can talk about it now publicly and share it in a podcast.
Yeah, that's the one. And this is, and even just stuff like this, you don't do stuff like this during those times. And even just enjoying a conversation like this and good reminders about those things around self-development and prioritizing exercise and all of those bits, I think, are really important.
Yeah, it's been so cool to have you on the show, Dan. I'm sure we'll get lots more opportunities to talk again in the future. One of the questions I had for you is, if we think about the long run as the next 5 years, what would success look like over the next 5 years?
I think one of the things that I talk about is like when we talk about the goal of building a 200 million revenue category defining brand. I actually said this in the team meeting last week. Is I actually don't care about the revenue target. What that revenue target is it's a outward sign of success to the rest of the world that they can look at and go, oh, that's massive, they've done a good job there. When I look at that, what I think about is if we're able to do that, we've been able to execute on the vision that we've had. We've been able to stay true to our values. We've been able to build a phenomenal team of people who have been able to come together and do something that's truly special. And we've served millions of customers, and those customers have had a positive experience, whether the products have helped them, whether the interaction with the brand has helped them, whether somebody's just watched this, they maybe don't want to buy into electrolytes, but this for the long run narrative is something that like lands with them and they're like, oh, I'm going to commit to this goal for this year. So when I look at a 200 million revenue target business, like that's what I think about, but that's what we attach ourselves to. But
it's everything that comes off the back of it, not just the figure itself.
Exactly. And that's what we said about like our sales target last month. I said to the team, we had a target, then it was like, this is where I want to be, but here's our stretch. And we hit the stretch, and that meant that if we hit the target, we'd all go out for a big nice dinner together. If we hit the stretch, we'd all go out for a nice dinner together and everyone would get a day off. And we hit the stretch and everyone's happy about that. And in the first week of the month, we do this like a little bit of a look back, and people talk about one win, one learning, and then one focus for the month. And what I said to them, and each team member gets up and sort of
I love the frameworks you've got for your staff, by the way. Really cool.
And I got up, and when my win was just a whole lot of pictures of everything that everybody had done that month. And the win for me isn't hitting the stretch target. The win is that I know in order for that to do that, we have to get great ambassador content. We have to do good sampling. We have to put good stuff out across our socials. Our customer service has to be on it. We have to have the right stock. So I talk about it like everybody in the team was like laying these bricks, and the stretch target was just us building the house, but everybody laid their little part. So that when I think about success, I think like it's undeniable that we have an opportunity to build a phenomenal business. What we say is like the only thing that you could say before is we didn't have any money. So now that we have that, whether Puresport goes on to what it can be or not is just up to whether I can put the right people to play the right positions at the right moment in time, and whether I can be a good enough coach to get people to do that. So I think that's the exciting thing about the thing in the team. That would scare a lot of people in the team. It's like, gosh, if this business is going to succeed or not, it's on me. But I think you get the right people in the room that really excites them. Yeah,
it's so cool to hear, Dan, and I've loved hearing about it, and I'm sure we'll get another chance to speak about it in the future. If people want to continue the conversation with you, where should they head towards?
Yeah, so Puresport, us as a business, you'll find us under that handle there, and then me as a business, me as a
individual.
Person, as an individual. I'm just Daniel Temm. I'm not Temm's Tango Echo Mike. It's a bit tough with the Kiwi accent. People are like, are you saying Tim? I'm not that active on socials, trying to be better. But
you're popping up on LinkedIn a lot more now, though, and I think you're reaching people that really want to get on board with the journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to. We've got Tom in the office, who's a big advocate of LinkedIn. He's always pushing me to try and post a little bit more on there. And like the exercise, it's another thing that maybe falls by the wayside, but again, I think it's something that's prioritized, and I think we're just a group of ordinary people trying to do something extraordinary, and I think that people can kind of resonate with that when they get to interact with us.
Beautiful. What a mission. I'll link your LinkedIn and your Instagram in the show notes, and thank you so much to you, Dan, and thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.